Hey everybody, Shane here, Shoebox Legends. Thanks for stopping by the channel for another video. In today's episode, I am really excited to get to a couple of autographed baseball cards that I picked up in the past off-season, this last winter into early spring. And they are just incredibly special autographed cards, both of them, for reasons that I'm going to get into as I make the case today. Maybe cards that you may not have heard of. I was unaware of these until I was introduced to them by my hobby buddy and yours, Hugo, over at Signs of the Pastime here on YouTube. Participated in a live event here with him, might have been almost a year ago now, and he brought a couple of these cards to that event and made me aware of them, and ever since I've been kind of tracking them down and adding some to my own collection. And what makes these so special and so in line with my collecting focus for the year, both of these cards feature on-card autographs of former Negro League greats. And I just find that concept to be amazing. So I've gabbed already for a minute here, and you may be wondering what the background cards are all about. So let's just get into the first one here of two that I have to show today. These are from the 2001 Fleer Greats of the Game release. And the first one here is Wilmer Fields of the Homestead Grays. Check out this card. Wilmer depicted in his Grays uniform, and a great on-card autograph from the folks at Fleer. This is now, well over 20 years old, having come out in 2001. There are a lot of subjects in this set across multiple sports, and a lot of baseball stars, of course, from Major League Baseball, but the Negro League stars are really what appealed to me. I was, not wholly unaware that you could get an affordable autograph of a Negro League great prior to seeing these, but I wasn't aware of this release in particular containing these cards, and I just fell in love with them immediately. So who is Wilmer Fields? I am far from an expert. I'm really just trying to learn myself. That's why I made this a collecting goal for the year. So, definitely consult other resources if you want a full breakdown on his life and career. But what I can tell you at a high level, what I've learned about him that I find really cool, he was a two-way player, meaning he pitched and hit incredibly effectively, even at the highest level that he could play in at the time, the Negro Leagues. And that's the reason we have this Shohei Ohtani and Babe Ruth card up in the background to kind of set some context, because I think everybody knows who these guys are, these dual threats, both on the mound and in the batter's box. But you don't hear Wilmer Fields' name referenced anywhere near as much. But he was absolutely that type of an all-star player at both positions. He routinely pitched to winning records, double-digit wins with, a small handful of losses, if any. And then, he would commonly swat in the high 300s for batting average. Just an incredible two-way player. Joined the Homestead Grays all the way back in 1940. I think he was maybe like 17 or, teenager, and played with them throughout the decade until they disbanded, with the exception of a 3-year period that he took off for military service, which is very appropriate. Of course, we just celebrated Memorial Day here in the States only a few days back, and he was in the Army in Europe during the World War II conflict, so very, very admirable as well. And then seamlessly returned to baseball afterwards, and continued to be just an effective player. After integration, when the Grays disbanded, he went on to play, first he was offered multiple contracts by major league clubs, allegedly, and turned them down. And instead, he went on to play ball in Canada, up in Canada, throughout the early to mid-50s, and then would play his winter ball down in the Caribbean. So to kind of just play year-round. And then later in his career, he played all over the place, Puerto Rico, I think Venezuela, and some other countries down there as well. He routinely won MVP awards in like any league that he played in after the Negro Leagues, including a stretch of 3 in like a 5-year period up in Canada. So just an incredible player that you don't hear talked about a lot just because, for obvious reasons, he didn't get the exposure that other players did at the time because he was discriminated against. But I think it's amazing to have an on-card autograph of this guy. This is not somebody who was like a scrub player in the Negro Leagues or that you may not have heard of. This was like a perennial all-star, absolute amazing talent in the Negro Leagues. And I just think getting that auto is beyond cool. These are not expensive, as I mentioned, at least at the time that I picked this up. within the last maybe 6 months or so. I think I paid maybe around $20 or $25. And to me, this is like maybe the best $20 value I've gotten out of a card in as long as I can remember. Just, I mean, an aged Fields here, you can tell by the signature, kind of that old man scrawl, but still very legible and just excellent penmanship. And I think this all the time when I see autographs of these guys, how cool it must have been for them. He would have been in his late 70s at the time that he signed this card for Fleer, and to finally get at least some recognition in the form of a baseball card that he was, sent by a manufacturer to sign for the fans. I would imagine that must have just been really, really cool for Mr. Fields to experience. And ultimately, he passed away in his early 80s, about 20 years ago. So certainly been a while since that one was inked. And then the second and final card for today, I tend to get wordy, but I'm just really passionate about learning about these players. From the same set, the same release, I have the Artie Wilson of the Birmingham Black Barons. Another player who, this is one of the great things about collecting these guys and making it a goal for this year to learn more about the league. I'm not very knowledgeable, or at least wasn't at the outset of this year, with a lot of these players and teams. And so unlike, major league players from the 40s and 50s who I'm intimately familiar with, every one of these pickups is not only a cool card for me, but it's a great learning experience and a reason to just dive down the rabbit hole of research. And what I found out on Artie Wilson is that he was probably considered the premier shortstop in the Negro Leagues, certainly the premier shortstop in the Negro American League when he played for the Birmingham Black Barons throughout the 1940s, at the same time that Wilmer Fields was playing for the Homestead Grays. So these guys definitely would have faced off against each other many times throughout the 40s. Artie, he was a 7-time starting all-star in the Negro Leagues at shortstop during the 40s. So that just tells you, basically the perennial starting shortstop for the Negro American League. And again, recognized as, probably the best at his position overall. Also won multiple batting titles in the Negro League. So not a two-way player like Wilmer Fields, shortstop with a great offensive upside though, and somebody who could really, really swing the bat well. So again, just like the Wilmer Fields, this guy was an absolute star of the Negro Leagues. And here, all these years later, more than 50 years after the league kind of disbanded and began to fall apart after integration, he finally got this baseball card and hard signed it for fans to collect. And I just think this is fantastic. Here's a look at the back of this as well. They're pretty simple backs, not really much going on with the design, although you do get assurances from Fleer that the card was autographed by the actual Artie Wilson, shortstop for the Birmingham Black Barons. So nice card to pair up with the Wilmer Fields. And I just want to conclude the episode by really commending Fleer for the job that they did, including these gentlemen in this release. I can't understate how great it is that while these folks were still with us and able to appreciate the fact that they had their own cards and even sign some of them for collectors, it's so meaningful to me that Fleer identified that and got these guys' signatures captured on cards while they were still with us. Again, Wilmer Fields passed away in 2004, and Artie Wilson lived all the way to age 90, but still passed away back in 2010. So these guys, had Fleer not thought of this at the time, back in the early 2000s, the opportunity to capture their signatures on cards would have been lost forever. And the fact that these are actually on card and not sticker autos just makes them even 10 times cooler. To know that those two gentlemen, as I said, held these in hand, likely with a smile on their face, recognizing that there were fans out there and baseball card collectors that valued their autographs as old men because of what they had achieved earlier in their careers. So I'm going to wrap it there today. I tend to go really long and I want to try to keep this around 10 minutes. But while I only showed 2 of these autographs in today's episode, I do have a few more that I've picked up from the release. So I do plan to do some follow-up episodes. I'll probably tackle them a pair at a time, like I did with these first 2. But for now, we're going to wrap it up. So Wilmer Fields and Artie Wilson, 2 amazing autos, and 2 folks who we should be talking more about in terms of hobby history. That's a wrap for today. Appreciate your time and you stopping by here to give this video a watch. I know there's a lot of great content out there competing for your YouTube minutes, and I certainly do appreciate it. I'll be back very soon with some more content, both Negro League players and otherwise. And until then, I hope you all keep enjoying the hobby. Take care.